Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. If you have been watching me for any length of time, you know that today's guest is one of my favorite and most distinguished guests. His name is Michael Webb. We've done podcasts over the years that we probably have more fun than you, the viewer, the way we get to talk about some things. And today we're going to talk about a topic that really is an epidemic within the world of affair recovery and even addiction. So, Michael, as always, man, you're like a brother to me. So, bro, it's great to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing really well, and it's always great to see you too, and to be here. I always feel honored when you want to pick my brain about something.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about today's topic because I do think it's an epidemic. And so, what we're going to talk about today for you that are watching and listening, we're talking about a dynamic that I guess, for lack of better terminology, we'll call it a parent-child dynamic within the world of infidelity or affair recovery or addiction as well that affects couples and individuals. So, as you work with couples, as you see this, maybe unpack what this parent-child dynamic can look like.
So, within every person, there are three parts of our personality. Our adult self, which is problem solving, relatively unemotional. There are some emotions, but they're situational. They're directly related to what's happening right now. But then there's a child part of us that's creative, impulsive, sweet, kind, but can also be manipulative, rebellious, can procrastinate, and also is historical. That what happened to me in the past is happened to me in the present whenever that child is activated. And so, especially when there's developmental trauma in childhood that's affected somebody's development, that when my inner child is triggered and is the one operating my mouth, I'm going to speak from that child perspective. Well, the other part of our personality is the inner parent. And the inner parent is absolutely necessary. You know, society does not stay together because of the police or the bosses or the supervisors. It stays together because most people want to do the right thing.
Right.
And that's due to our inner parent. Our inner parent says, this is right, this is wrong, this is what you should do. And when we please our inner parent, we generally feel a sense of peace or comfort or security. And when we're doing something that we don't think is right, we're going to feel guilt, maybe even shame, anxiety, uncertainty. Well, the inner parent can take over also. And the thing is, the parent will sometimes take over because the inner child feels threatened. In the same way that a parent in a family, if somebody's coming at your kid, you're going to get in between that threat and your kid and say, what's up? You're
Right.
going to protect that kid. So, in infidelity, when you have D-Day and everything comes down and it is awful, the unfaithful partner is feeling shame, guilt, fear, often confusion. How the hell did I do this to myself, to my family?
Right.
And also, maybe also having these vague ties to the lifestyle or to the affair partner. On the other side of it, you've got the betrayed spouse who understandably wants compliance from their unfaithful spouse. For example, they want them to be transparent about where they go, where they spend money on, who they do what with. They want their phone to be completely open to them. They want to be able to know where that partner is, and what they're doing so that at least I can establish trust in the present.
Right.
However, that level of monitoring does not necessarily lead to trust. It leads to some comfort because I know you're not cheating today because I know where your phone is, I know where you are. And there's a variety of methods that people use to make sure that they have, full disclosure of where their unfaithful partner is and what they're doing. And as long as that's going on for a while, that's good. The betrayed spouse is going to feel like, okay, they're being compliant. It doesn't mean that I'm happy at all. I still don't trust them. I'm still
Right.
very hurt. I'm
Right.
confused. I want a freaking explanation. How the hell did this happen? But I am at least momentarily comforted by knowing that it is stopped and that my partner wants to make amends
Because
on
the betrayed also wants the unfaithful to not just check boxes and not just be a
right.
robot, because the betrayed wants the unfaithful to start to show initiative, right?
Well, see, that's where it gets sticky. And that's where this parent-child thing comes in. If I am the unfaithful partner and I have been given a list of things to do every day and I'm doing them and I'm reporting back to my spouse, this is what I did, this is where I was, it potentially can trigger that person to feel like a child reporting to parent. Here's my report card. How did I do today? And the thing about it is when that child in us is activated, we really do start to respond in a childlike way.
Yeah.
Well, correspondingly, depending on a few factors that might be too big to get into right now, but childhood trauma and addiction are one of them, or two of them, that the betrayed spouse may actually have their inner parent activated also because the kid in them, if they've had that childhood trauma, may be feeling abandoned, absolutely is feeling betrayed, feeling confused, uncertain. And those feelings coming from the child perspective can lead the betrayed partner to begin allowing the inner parent to take over. And so now you've got the unfaithful partner feeling like a child in the terms of I'm reporting back, I'm doing everything right. And then you've got the betrayed spouse feeling as though they're parenting, which is not what they wanted, like you're
No.
saying. They're wanting that partner to take initiative. However, there's a benefit here. There's benefits to allowing the child or the parent to take over. For example, if I'm in my adult state and I am the betrayed spouse, when I acknowledge that I am actually powerless over my spouse, evidenced by the infidelity, but also evidenced by, although they're being compliant, it doesn't mean that they're not still trying to fool me.
Right.
And because of that, I'm feeling afraid. Do they really want me? Do I really want them, even if they're being compliant, if you will, if they're really trying? Why did this happen? Will it happen again? And so there's grief, there's fear, there's feelings of abandonment. The betrayal is eating them alive.
Yeah.
Well, when the inner parent takes over and feels a sense of control, all of those painful feelings from being betrayed start to decrease.
Interesting. So the betrayed, shall we say, regresses to,
It's not exactly a regression because the inner parent is an adult, but it's parental, it's black and white, it's control, it's top down. Like
yes,
I do, I say, and you do.
right, because that produces the compliance. And I've said this before, a great friend of ours, James Anir, we said this on a podcast a month or two ago, and this will resonate with the betrayed. Compliance is not transformation.
No, it's not. And especially when compliance is coming from the child, because the child in us remains a child. Even as we integrate traumatic experiences in the past, the child in us remains a child. They just become a freer child. So, what is happening here is that the reduction in some of the painful emotions that the betrayed spouse feels because the parent is kind of standing in front of the child and directing the other spouse, the adult in that person is starting to feel like my partner is just checking boxes.
Yeah.
They're just doing what I told them to do. Well, that's what kids do. Kids don't take initiative. And kids over time begin to begrudgingly do their homework. They
Right.
begrudgingly do their chores. They get an attitude about it. They feel like I never get to have any fun. Well, when you think about, a fair recovery, that is the last kind of attitude that you want an unfaithful spouse to have with their partner when they're trying to rebuild their marriage. However, it happens. It begins to feel as though, from the unfaithful's part, that all I am now
Yeah.
is just I am a robot. If I don't do what they want me to do, then I'm in the doghouse. I'm in trouble. And then I get a lecture or I get shut out. I sleep on the couch and there's immediate consequences. And so that's a childlike response.
Or it can look like the unfaithful. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's a good point to make, which is, or the unfaithful can regress to this point of, you're never happy. It's never enough. All I do is inefficient and I just constantly screw up. And we kind of become that tantruming toddler, right?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. And that's kind of where it ends up, though, is that especially if there is some unresolved business in the child part of the unfaithful partner, they're going to begin to say to their spouse, I'm just not enough. I'm not enough, and nothing I do is enough. If I do one thing wrong, the whole world crashes down around me. And I feel like no matter what, I am one mistake away from divorce. I am one mistake away from the couch. And so the child is not taking initiative, but the
Yeah.
child is also talking to the adult saying, this isn't getting any better. That all they want from me is compliance and it's never enough. They always want more. But what's really happening there is the betrayed spouse is saying, I want you to take initiative. It's great that you're doing these three or four things every day that I want you to do, but I would like for something to come from you. I would like this to be internalized.
Yeah.
I would like for you to begin to transform. These are the things that made me feel safe immediately, but it is not addressing the pain that I feel about what you did. And beyond that, it is not giving me any sense of an explanation. Well, the thing about it is when the child is activated and the child is speaking, the child is in charge, everything that I feel has always been there. I've never been enough for you.
Yeah. Would it be safe to say that to go a level deeper for an unfaithful male, for example, and a betrayed female? I know I'm trying not to laugh because we see this every day, but for the listening audience,
Yeah.
we as unfaithful men can transfer onto our betrayed female our unresolved mom issues or our unresolved dad issues. I think it was Richard Rohr that says pain that is not transformed will be transferred or transmitted. So would it be
Yeah.
safe to say that in this dynamic, we have an unfaithful male who's angry and defensive because he's transferring on to his betrayed female how his mom was controlling, demeaning, not validating, didn't really provide a nurturing environment. So now we are regressed and we are back in our child state mad because you're never happy, forgetting about our 2, 5, 10 year affair or addiction or multiple affairs. So
Yeah.
we are the ones with mud on our face, right?
Right, exactly. And yeah, it's what's really can be bizarre to witness is how the context of the situation being a fair recovery is lost in this dynamic. It's like, no, I'm not happy. You cheated on me for 10 years.
Right.
You know, it's not that I don't appreciate the fact that you're being compliant, but that is not making me feel better. But like you're saying, the mom issues, if you will, from the unfaithful spouse begin to rise up. And I've never been enough for you. You always demanded for me. I went and I got the job for you. I bought the house for you. I did this for you. I did that for you. And then you didn't do for me. And sometimes they even say, just like my mom.
Absolutely. Because The unfaithful is really at war with themselves, but we are transferring or transmitting it onto our betrayed. Not all the time, but a lot of times, right?
That is absolutely true. In fact, those feelings, those issues that were already there,
Yes.
waiting to show up,
Yes.
have now shown up. And it's the same thing, though, for the betrayed spouse. If they were growing up and their dad, if it's a female, if their dad was always at work, didn't show them enough attention, maybe there was divorce and they lost a parent in the divorce,
Right.
there's going to be this aching need and this fear of abandonment. And that fear of abandonment leads them actually towards doing things that will push somebody away because they're afraid. They may be asking, "Where are you? When are you coming home? What are you doing? I need this." And it's not because they're demanding, it's not because they're controlling, it's because they're afraid. And that fear is beneath the fear in the betrayed spouse is a feeling of an inadequacy. I am abandonable.
Mm,
I am betrayable. I am afraid that it will happen again. But the behavior that comes from those fears and that sense of insecurity can push people away. Correspondingly, when infidelity happens, their feeling that I have now been abandoned again is there. It's happened
absolutely.
again. I am abandonable. And so again, the inner parent jumps up to protect the kid. And the amount of, I guess, hate is a good word that begins to come into the speech and the conversations and the conflicts in this pairing gets pretty intense. That the betrayed spouse is attacking, they're name calling, they're saying things that they've never said in their life
Right.
because the fear and the inadequacy and all of the work that they put in their life and into their marriage has now been thrown out the window because again, the feelings from the child feel like they have always been there. This has always been happening to me.
Yeah.
And so as the child becomes more in the unfaithful or the betrayed partner becomes more and more hurt, that turns into more and more anger being expressed by the parent. And so the betrayed spouse may be really going off on their partner. You didn't do this and you did that and you are a son of a bitch and you're the and like words that they have never used in their life. And then they say, "Why aren't you being more vulnerable with me?
Right.
I want you to take initiative. I want you to have empathy for me." And their partner's like, "Whoa, I'm scared right now of you
Yeah.
because I did everything you asked." Yeah, you only did what I asked. I wanted you to do more. Well, why would I do more if you're scary now? Why would I do more if you seem to hate me? How can I open up to you if every time I do, you attack me? And although we may not want, we may not want to hurt our spouse on either side.
Right.
Hurt is happening. Hurt in the present is happening at this point.
And the dynamic that we're talking about, it's in this dynamic that when the betrayed, male or female, is in this parental role, and then the unfaithful slides into this child role, that dynamic, is it safe to say, romanticism, eroticism, passion is annihilated
Oh,
because the betrayed, please understand, those of you that are watching and listening, we're not trying to be crass, but a lot of clinicians will use this terminology. It feels incestuous because you don't want to have physical intimacy with this childlike dynamic. It feels disgusting. It feels gross because the betrayed, male or female, wants an adult who doesn't just comply, but rises up, takes initiative, does what they're supposed to do, and then some, right? Because they're an adult. Now we have two adults. We don't have a parent and a child. Is that fair?
yeah, and that is where, like you're saying, no one, if once this occurs, even if you're not aware of it, attraction, romanticism, any sexual attraction goes completely out the window on both sides. And also, vulnerability is completely gone at this point because the fear and pain that's being expressed by the child in the betrayed spouse is activating the adult to be more and more dictatorial, more demanding, and angrier, more shaming even. We haven't even mentioned that, and we should, that there is shame on both sides of this, and it's very confusing. When a child is abused, when a child is abandoned, when a child is neglected, they store up toxic shame. And that shame it really belongs to the parent or the
Hmm.
caregivers that did not take care of them.
Right.
However, the reality of it is I'm feeling it about me. The kid is left to believe that I must have done something wrong. I must be something wrong for this to be happening to me. And so this shame, well, there's no emotion that will drive extreme behavior farther and faster than shame. And it occurs on both sides. It is panic level feelings.
Absolutely. And it is so palpable that both partners in their own shame can feel like they're on their own islands, unreachable, right?
Absolutely. And we can have this internal defensive reaction to shame, where instead of as an adult, like you're saying, I would take into context here. Of course, my wife is angry that I cheated. Of course, she's hurt. Of course, she doesn't trust me. Of course, she wants me to bend over backwards to demonstrate that I want to be here and I want her and I want to make any amend necessary in order. Of course, I know that from an adult perspective. But the child who is experiencing shame, who's experiencing inadequacy, is feeling defeated and broken. And then the parent comes in and takes over, and now they're angry and they're attacking back. And what's happening here is these two people have stepped into what's called the drama triangle, where one of them is the victim and one of them is the persecutor. And the victim wants the persecutor to become their rescuer. Once you cheated on me, you hurt me, I want you to rescue me from this. And this is the biggest problem because when it comes to developmental childhood trauma, ultimately we must rescue ourselves. And so the adult in both parties needs to step up and be able to say that to the child in both parties, let me handle this. Now, it's entirely possible that this is activated or awakened trauma from their past that needs to be addressed in therapy.
Yes.
It's really, really hard to address this stuff on your own. There are some groups out there that are very helpful, but being able to negotiate the emotional intensity that comes from an abused child activated in an adult it sometimes it really does benefit from a professional to see what's happening, to know what.
Absolutely. And I think we both would agree that we do this every day, and you have to come from a trauma-informed approach. Because if you don't understand this, it will eat you alive as the helper or the clinician, and it will
Yeah,
eat the clients alive because they don't know what's happening within themselves, much less their partner, right?
yes. So the thing is, in that drama triangle, somebody wants to be rescued. And initially, it's usually the betrayed spouse that wants to be rescued by the unfaithful spouse doing all the right things. You were the persecutor, you were the bad guy. I want you to become the good guy and give me a reason to feel like I should stay. Give me a reason to so that I can face myself and say that it was a good idea for me to stay with this person. Because although you might convince me, I've still got to convince myself. I've got to live with me if I
Right.
stay.
You are exactly right. And this is where I want to stop for a moment and tell all of you betrayeds, whether you're male or female. it's vital that you understand when we say that you have to rescue yourself, that does not mean that the unfaithful doesn't need to do an immense amount of work on themselves and the relationship. There is no passive aggressive stance here. There is no hidden blame on you, the betrayed. But the unfaithful will never be able to do enough work that you, the betrayed, don't have to do your own work. It does not work that way. The unfaithful cannot do your work. The betrayed has to do their own work. The unfaithful has to do their own work. But the betrayed has to rescue themselves, which is where you show up for yourself, you do lots of somatic work, you work on grief. One day, ultimately, you'll get to forgiveness down the road. But this is where you work on your trauma, your reminders, your intrusive thoughts, your triggers. That is your work, but the unfaithful can assist them in their work. Did I say that in a
Right.
way that the esteemed Michael Webb would agree with?
So thank you for pulling that out of the fire. Yeah, I do get what you're saying. And yeah, absolutely. I do not want the betrayed spouse to say that, to hear me say, you got to rescue yourself. I
You
was
didn't say,
specifically,
and you didn't
oh,
say that, but I just always am careful because some of my betrayed friends out there like to go,
no,
Sam, you said, no, 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 we did not say that because the betrayed has to rescue themselves, but the unfaithful has to rescue themselves from the pit of either addiction or multiple infidelities or one or what have you. And the unfaithful can be someone with their work that reaches for the betrayed and says, I do love you. I do want you. I was outside of my brain. I want to do everything I can to show you that I do love you and that you are not the problem. I'm the problem, right?
absolutely. The saving or protecting that happens within the betrayed spouse is when they step out of that parent role into the adult and can separate. Okay, these are childhood trauma feelings. They're really, really painful and they're activated. And then these are adult present feelings. I have been betrayed in my marriage.
Yes.
And that's where it helps to have a clinician involved to be able to separate the traumatically stored feelings that are triggered by the betrayal from the present day adult expression of grief and betrayal that is very, very warranted and needs to happen. And so you've got truly four different conversations going on here between these
Right.
two adults and between the kid and the adult within each person. What you want to do and what we're working towards is both parties being able to recognize what these childlike feelings feel like and be able to recognize, my kid in me who feels like he's never been enough needs to talk to me about that. I don't need to talk to my spouse about that because the last thing after betrayal my spouse needs is to take care of a little boy.
And this is where we slide into, okay, what does the couple do about this? So I think the first thing I want to quote Dan Siegel, who, when he said this, it was kind of a mic drop moment. I say it all the time, right? Name it to tame it. So we have to name this dynamic and say, look, this is happening. And this is where I say to the unfaithful, if you want to stop being parented, if you want to stop being mommed, or if you're if you're an unfaithful female and you don't want to feel like dad is controlling you, well, then step up your work. Get into your adult and stop having to be parented and show your betrayed that you don't need to be babysat, right?
Well, absolutely. That, it's kind of like the with the unfaithful spouse, if you were doing what is asked and that is all, then you're really not doing a whole lot to make progress. And you're saying you don't want to.
Now, okay, Such a phenomenal statement. Now, unpack the latter part where you said, and you're saying you don't want to. How does that come into play?
So with a betrayed spouse, like you took the initiative to cheat on me. You took the initiative to hide it. You did various things that demonstrated you are putting a lot of thought and attention into these affairs or this affair. And all that you're doing to repair it is what I ask you to do.
Oh, I want to light a cigar and just let that marinate because you said that so beautifully. All you're doing is what I've asked you to do. You're not saying, I'm going to go above and beyond because I love you and I want you back and I want us and I want our family. That's kind of what you're
Yeah.
saying, right?
Now, that comparison is absolutely a slippery slope. However, the feeling that I know what you're capable of in terms of demonstrating desire and wanting, and not just romance, but emotional awareness to be able to express to me as the betrayed spouse that you want me and you want to make any amend that is going to bring me back to you. And nothing that anytime that you're just doing what I've asked you to do, that doesn't count. That doesn't demonstrate that you care. Your initiative, something that comes from you, your ideas, your thoughts, your emotions, your empathy. You're showing up in a way beyond what I ask you to do.
And I
That,
and
that, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think there is a point where you and I and several colleagues, people that come in the podcast, James Anir and Sharon Renierson and Amanda Esproni, Caparucci, there is a point where we almost have to stop sometimes and say, at the end of the day, this takes grit. Man or woman unfaithful, this takes grit. You have to want to do this. And I told a guy not too long ago, and I hated to do this, but I felt like it needed to happen. As I said, so how many text messages did you send a month to your affair partner and the betrayed in this dynamic? He said, she sent over 3,000 text messages a month to the affair partner. And I said, so, and I was actually saying this to a female unfaithful. I said, so you sent 3,000 text messages a month over 2 years, right? So 3,000 times 12 is 36,000 text messages a year times two. I'm not great at math, but you can do the math there. So
Yeah.
you sent thousands of text messages. You did all of this stuff to have this affair, but you can't read a book, you can't watch a podcast, you can't go find reels to send, you can't go book a therapy session. You're just sitting on your ass trying to just check boxes. How infuriating is that to the betrayed? And she sat
Yeah.
there and was like, I never saw it that way. I said, I'm not trying to produce shame. I'm trying to tell you, wake up and get back into your adult that isn't tantruming about what's happened. Is that fair to say?
I think that's very fair to say. And the thing is, it is not about comparison. It is about a recognition that your spouse knows what it feels like when you want something. They know you.
Oh my gosh. Keep going. It's brilliant.
And if you don't demonstrate that you want them every day, initiative every day, if you don't dig deep, then you're not repairing the damage.
And you're not giving them anything to hold on to.
Right, exactly. Because what I just asked you to do is enough to keep me safe. It's not enough to repair anything. I want you to demonstrate that you want me in a way that gives me something to tell myself because I've got to learn to trust me. I was actually trusting you when you were doing this. There's a part of me that is sitting there with arms crossed saying, I ain't going to do crap until you show me that you're trustworthy. And I've got to answer that part inside of me. I've got to tell me why I'm going to trust you. And if you don't bring something pretty good, I won't have anything to say to me and I won't be able to stay.
And it's not about performance because when we unfaithful slip into, well, I got to do this and I got to do this, that is a childlike expression that's like a teenager trying to keep their mom or dad happy so they'll get off their ass, right?
Exactly. And it gets real nasty at
Oh,
times. And the thing is like talking mainly to the unfaithful spouse, I'm like, like you were saying, you sent text messages, you booked trips, you spent money, you took time off work, you worked both sides of the fence. This was a lot of effort for you to do this. And so if you want to get your spouse back, if you want her or him, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take that much and maybe a little more. And that's not you paying the price. It's not a penalty because I think that if you want to stay, you do want them that much. But you're afraid that you're going to go out on a limb and it's not going to work. And that's the kid in you. That is the kid being afraid, being insecure. As an adult, you can take care of that kid and say, listen, I'm going to be okay one way or another. I have every reason to do this because it's the right thing and because I do want it. From the betrayed side, being able to stop pursuing. Because whenever there's an unfaithful partner who's not doing their part, they're compliant, but that's about all they're doing. That leads to fear and insecurity and anger and grief. And though none of this feeling is good, it does not feel good. And it feels very powerless. And powerlessness when you're not seeing any change in your spouse also feels hopeless. And that leads to grief. And that leads to an emotional withering on the betrayed partner's place where they don't want to leave. They're sitting here waiting. I really want you to show me. I don't want to grieve you while you're standing in front of me, but I'm gonna.
yeah. And the
I'm gonna let
betrayed.
you go.
Absolutely. And then the betrayed starts to resent themselves
Yes.
for
Mhm.
staying in the relationship. And they've got like this devil and the angel, or what we call ego states or parts going,
Yeah.
how could you do this? Don't you remember what they did? Don't you remember how they harmed you? So the unfaithful sits here not understanding you are only pouring salt in the wound because the betrayed's over here resenting themselves, going, I shouldn't even be here. I'm worth more than this. I can't believe I'm staying. How a betrayed said this to me the other day. How stupid am I to stay in this relationship? How stupid, what does that say about me? And you and I sit here and we go, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
we understand how you feel that way. But
Yes.
it is not stupid to give another human another chance. However, then we sit here and go, but unfaithful.
You better get to moving.
I mean, the old folks would say this, and I never forgot this. You better get on the good foot and
Yeah.
start putting effort because effort is what feels like love. But I want to end today with a comment that you told me years ago. You were helping me work through some things in my own journey. And you said this, and I never forgot this. You said children are always overwhelmed at adult responsibilities. So if we as unfaithful are overwhelmed, perhaps we are regressed or we have slid into this child state. And when we are in that state, we are not going to make adult decisions or do what we need to do as an adult. Is that fair?
Absolutely. It's whenever you can't think of any initiative to take. When you're asking your therapist or your coach, what should I do? Do I need to bring flowers? Do I need to... Really, dude? You're the one who's married to her. What does she want? That's this overwhelmed child being deer in the headlights. I don't know what to do. As an adult, stepping into the adult role, you know what to do. And the solution you had alluded to earlier for this is one or both parties to recognize this dynamic is happening.
Yeah.
Once you realize this dynamic is happening, there are prescribed actions to take. And we have absolutely pounded the point home. If you are the unfaithful spouse, get off your ass.
Yeah. It's
Demonstrate you love this person and you want to stay, and do everything that you can to keep yourself in an adult state and demonstrate that you want to be there. Be contrite. Recognize that you are sorry. Talk to somebody else about how shamed you are, how
yes.
guilty you feel.
Yes.
Don't try to get sympathy from your spouse. That's not going to work. Talk to somebody like me. Talk to somebody like Sam, because you need support too. I'm not saying you don't, but you're going to have to do your part. Recognize that. From the betrayed side, I'm asking you to step back. I know that it's painful and it's scary to sit and wait and hold your inner self contained,
Yeah.
where the kid in you is feeling betrayed, where the adult is you, or the parent in you is telling you that to punish them,
Yeah.
that you're feeling the grief and you're feeling the sadness and possibly the shame. That's what you feel when you're not in the parent role and they're not doing what they need to do. And I'm asking you to accept it. Accept that that's what's happening. If you have to make your spouse do what you want them to do, they didn't do it because they want to. And if they didn't do it because they wanted to, you're going to have to keep doing it. And you'll always wonder whether or not they actually want you.
And I think if the unfaithful was to put that on repeat and listen to that about 30 times, it might register where they go, okay. And this would be a great opportunity for you unfaithful to listen to what Michael said and ask yourself, am I really doing everything I could be doing to help my betrayed feel safe, feel wanted, feel desired? Because we can assure you the betrayed does not want to parent you. If they feel like they have to parent you, you only pour gas on the fire that's going on inside of them. And if you're an unfaithful and you just say, I'm so screwed up, this resonates with me, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how to set myself free. Well, find an expert that is trauma informed that can help you. So if people want to inquire about working with you, Michael, and I know that you have a full caseload, but you do have openings every now and then. If people want to reach out to you, how can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
So go on Psychology Today and just look up Michael Webb in either Keller or Flower Mound, Texas. And it'll pull up my profile. Send me an email or a text. That's the best way to get in touch with me. Like everybody else, I get 50 spam phone calls a day now. And so if I don't know you, I'm not answering the phone. No, wow, I really appreciate you opening this topic up, Sam. I think it's
No,
huge. We both see it a lot, and being able to clarify what's actually happening is so important.
it really is because I know you'll echo these sentiments that if you as a couple or you as a betrayed or unfaithful can grab hold of the messages within today's conversation, it is a true game changer. It is probably going to be one of the biggest game changers in your recovery process if you can grab hold of these concepts. Listen to this again, take notes, write it down, process it with whoever the helper is that's involved with you. Because if you can name this dynamic and pattern and then begin to make changes to it, it is not an oversimplification to say everything can get just a little bit easier. And I know every betrayed out there wants something to get just a little bit easier. So,
Yeah,
as always, Michael, thank you so much for coming in. Those of you that are watching and listening, we see you. We
absolutely.
know that this is gut wrenching. But my old mentor, Rick Reynolds, used to say this all the time. It's not as hopeless as it seems. When you get the right help, When you get the right people, you get the right process. When you get the right process, you can find a pathway to healing. So, Michael, thank you again for coming in.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next time on the podcast. Take care of yourself.